Today I have a very special video to share with you. This is a 50-hour bespoke detail on a Bugatti Chiron. I hope you enjoy it, and definitely stick around for the end of the video, as we will talk about that 1% that's not clickbait. It is a real conversation that we're going to have. And on top of that, there's crazy footage at the end of us going for a drive in this 1,500 horsepower ridiculous hypercar that most people never get to see, and we got to film everything, including a drive. So let's jump into the video.
It's what non-car people don't get. They see all cars as just 1.5 tons, 2 tons of wires, glass, metal and rubber. That's all they see. People like you or I know, we have an unshakable belief that cars are living entities. Well, not a Toyota Corolla, obviously, but you can develop a relationship with a car, and that's what non-car people just don't get. There was a guy called Charles Babbage who invented the computer back in the 18th century, who talked about the unerring certainty of machinery. Okay, now the problem you have is that when you have the unerring certainty of machinery, it is a machine. When something has foibles and won't handle properly, that gives it a particularly human quality because it makes mistakes, and that's how you can build a relationship with a car that other people won't get.
The car is the closest thing we will ever create to something that is alive. And that was once said by the founder of Jaguar. And I think it speaks very well to the same thing that what Jeremy Clarkson just said in that video. He said, we have this unshakable belief that you can develop a relationship with a car. And I think I develop a relationship with virtually every single car that I do a detail on over 15 or 20 hours. Because that's a lot of time to spend locked in a room, staring at a car and learning all of the curves and all the different things about it, and learning, where the wear and tear is on the interior, where it is on the outside, learning how I detail it and where I can't detail, or how I can only do a certain area a certain way because of the way the curves are. It's kind of like we're a doctor for the car and the car is the patient, and we're having our first meeting and we're kind of learning about each other, about how when you do that with a doctor, it's like, oh, I have stomach problems, or I'm prone to getting headaches, and you learn, you develop that rapport, and then you have a history going forward. So this was kind of, the interview for starting the relationship with the Bugatti. And we're very fortunate, or I am very fortunate, to have a situation where this car is going to return every month to every 2 months for maintenance details. So doing a 50-hour detail on a car is incredible. But then often, the car will leave and you see it once a year or once every 2 years. But we're actually going to be the primary caregiver and detailer for this car for a long-term period. From my understanding, I don't think they have a plan of selling the car. So I will probably be the caregiver for this car potentially forever. So this is truly the start of a relationship with a $3.3 million Bugatti, where we set the car up so it's perfect, and then we're going to begin the maintenance. And it's really, really cool that that's going to be a part of this YouTube channel. So if you are not subscribed to this YouTube channel, I would definitely like and subscribe, because we have a lot of crazy content coming, and this car is going to be kind of a staple of our YouTube channel. So let's jump into the actual detail, and because now I think you understand a little bit of the theme here. Is that this is the story of developing a relationship with the Bugatti Chiron. So the car arrives here and it's a little bit dirty, but the car is washed about once a week. They have a person who works for them that washes this car and a couple other cars that they own. Nothing like crazy detailers or anything, but I mean, the car is washed relatively routinely, which is good, obviously, as long as we have a good wash process, which I believe they do based on the condition of the car. So the car comes in a little bit dirty, but by no means is it any kind of disaster barn find detail or anything like that. So we wash this car like we would wash any other car, whether it came in dirty or not dirty, because that's just the proper beginning to a good wash, which leads to a good beginning to a paint correction, because we don't want to run into problems later by doing a fast or a poor wash process. So the whole car ends up getting washed with Gtechniq foam. This is a new product we just put in our store, and it's very, very nice to use because it's a very strong soap and it foams really, really well. And foaming is kind of this controversial thing where a lot of foam can be great, but when there's actual beneficial parts to that foam is when Gtechniq foam kind of enters the conversation. So Gtechniq foam foams really well, and it adheres to the paint really well, and it's very strong. So it's designed to really dissolve dirt. and it kind of does that in hard to reach places because it dwells on the car so long. So it's going to go into all the cracks, all the crevices. It's going to remove any hard, dirt and stuff. Like there's a lot of open vents and stuff on this car that's hard to get into. So spraying Geon foam into there really loosens things that I might not even be able to reach because it's in such a weird area. After that process, I still used Geon Bathe on the car. So I technically washed it twice. I foamed it twice anyways. And then the whole car got washed. We used our Detail Factory brush and kind of got in there. I love this brush. In the past, we were using some other brushes that we were testing, but we're officially using our Detail Factory brushes now in our videos and things. And just a great brush. It gets into all the crevices around the windows, little seams, definitely like in the grills and things like that. The Detail Factory brush is great. And then obviously we're using our premium wash pad and we're just going over the whole entire car. Keep note that the wash pad doesn't have any stitching on it because stitching can definitely scratch a car. And when you're washing a $3.3 million car, you're definitely a little hyper aware of what you're doing, and you don't want to scratch anything or screw anything up, especially on a car that's basically made out of 100% carbon fiber. I'll give you some crazy stats later, but one fast one is that if you took all the carbon fiber strands out of the car and lined them up back to back, that you could go from the Earth to the moon 9 times. And crazy stats like that are why the car is worth so much money. So obviously we're trying to be very careful when we're washing the car, even if it's something as small as using a wash pad with no stitching in it versus a wash pad with stitching in it. So after the wash process and all the decontamination, there was no clay was used because the car didn't need it. You only use clay when you need to. A great analogy of that is you use clay. Like clay is like going to the emergency room. So if you paper cut your finger, you don't go to the emergency room. But if you cut your hand open with a knife while you're cooking real bad, that would be the emergency room. So a little bit of dirt is not enough to clay bar. But if you have heavy, real contamination that you can feel or hear, that's when we're going to use a clay bar. And we did not have that, so it was not necessary for any of the process on this car. I did, however, use Iron X fallout remover on the back of the car, because when you have a W16 with 4 turbos, you kick up some iron in the back of the car. I did not film that, but that was part of the decon process. There really wasn't anything to see on a black car. You can't see anything actually coming off the car, so it just kind of isn't much fun to see. So once the car was pulled into the shop, we kind of look around the entire thing and we just do like an inspection, and that can take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. So I'm really inspecting the inside of the car, the leather, any spots that I'm definitely going to need to address. We inspected the door jambs because people are in and out of this car all the time. The owner is a very, very nice gentleman who, when he takes this car to car shows, he lets 5-year-old kids sit in it, he lets 10-year-old kids sit in it, he'll let anyone sit in it. And obviously some of these kids, maybe aren't being so careful when they get in and they might kick those door sills. The door sills do have paint protection film, something I would typically be way super against. I think that's not necessary. But on a car like this that's being sat in like 20 times more than the average car, it makes a lot of sense. So there were some spots on the doors that we tried to polish out and just kind of brighten up and make it look a little bit better. And in a worst case scenario in the future, we can always tear those off and just put new ones on if we really need to, but they were savable in this case. And then the whole car has paint protection film on it. Now, even though we have paint protection film on the car, we can paint correct it. And the most important part of that process is really that we're gonna ceramic coat the car later, and when it is paint corrected, we're using the word paint corrected loosely there, when it's polished, we're kind of exfoliating the pores of the plastic and releasing all the dirt. And that really allows the ceramic to bond better to the it's plastic, it's paint protection film. So during that inspection, we found a couple things. There were some light swirls and stuff in the film, nothing crazy. Some of it might have been below the film. It was kind of hard to tell, but definitely improvement could be done. So the paint correction process, or we're just going to call it the polishing process, because we didn't really correct paint. We polished plastic paint protection film. When the car comes in, it looks pretty good. But as you can go through the polishing process, as you're doing that and you're looking at the pad, and I'll show you a picture of it, the pad starts to change colors. And I'm using a bright orange pad. It was brand new, never used before. And it starts to change colors, and it's literally getting darker in color. And I'm using CarPro Reflect, which is a product we also have in the store now, which is amazing. It works so good, and it doesn't really dust a whole lot, which is great for what it is. In the past, we've had products like that that dust a lot, and sometimes they don't dust, and sometimes when they don't dust, that actually causes some problems. But so far, I haven't had any issues with this, and I really, really like it, and that's why I started stocking it. But anyways, that product is white, like totally white. So it's not residue from the product, because we've used polishes in the past that are like brown or gray. So this pad is not changing colors because of the color of the product being used. It's changing colors because we're exfoliating dirt out of the car, out of the film, and it's going into the pad. And that just shows you, if you have paint protection film on your car, I get this all the time. People go, oh, it's got paint protection film on it. We don't need any polishing or paint correction done. And this is the proof. A $3.3 million car that's washed literally weekly still needed this process to get all the dirt out of the film, because it's not as simple as just it's washed and it has film on it. So that process is pretty crucial to this, because otherwise, if we don't do that, we're putting ceramic on top of that dirt and the film. So we're literally sealing the dirt into the film. This is why we do the process of paint correction, which we'll call polishing in this situation. Polishing this car was, I won't call it complicated. I think I've polished more complicated cars. When I say complicated, I'm talking about the lines. So most of the car can be done with a 6-inch pad. There are definitely spots that can only be done with a 1, 2, and 3-inch pad. I filmed a little bit of that stuff. But this is definitely a detail that is complicated, but on the scale to 1 to 10, and 10 being the hardest and 1 being not the hardest, it's definitely not a 10. I'd call it a 7, maybe something like that, maybe an 8, just for the fact that we're polishing film, and the process of doing that is drastically different than polishing actual paint. But as far as just like polishing a car from a perspective of using a polisher on it, really not that difficult, which just because the car is very round, and there's really not any crazy aggressive lines on it or anything. I recently paint corrected a air-cooled like a 993 turbo in Guards Red. That was honestly more complicated of a polishing job, because it was single stage paint with crazy residue, and the lines and stuff on that car are a little more complicated. So interestingly enough, doing a $3.3 million car from a paint correction standpoint wasn't the most difficult detail I've ever done, but it was an interesting one, considering the film had so much dirt in it, and the process to get that out was very non-traditional. So once the paint was all cleaned up, we could prep all of that and put ceramic on it. We ended up doing kind of a special ceramic coating on this car. The car had a base coat of crystal serum on it, and then we did a top coat of EXO. We did 2 layers of that because you can layer EXO. Both of those products are great to use. You can buy both those products in our store. They're really, really easy to use. I mean, I've used some ceramic coatings over the time of being in business that are like way hard, like even hard for me to put on. But these 2 products are great to work with. They're things that I have confidence that if you're watching this and you wanted to ceramic coat your car, if you watched a little bit of some videos and looked into it a little bit, I'm confident you could handle it. And then we actually topped that, which is something we don't normally do, but in this car we did. We actually topped that with Gtechniq wax, which is a fluorine-based ceramic wax. So it looks like traditional wax, but it is fluorine ceramic, like baked in there. Now, when I started this business, I used Gtechniq Booster a lot, which was a fluorine-based topper similar to EXO. And they actually discontinued Booster, I think, because the raw material was so expensive, because fluorine's it's the real deal, it's expensive. So now they do a version of that where Booster is basically now Gtechniq wax and fluorine is in that product. The reason we put that on the car was because the car left, I knew it was going to leave in rain. It was very likely it was going to rain when we left, and we had planned to do the drive. So I didn't really want the ceramic coatings that I put on to get exposed to water, so we put that wax on top as a sacrificial layer to kind of let those 2 base coats, the base coat and the top coat, cure, and then we had Gtechniq wax on as like a top coat to kind of protect everything. The car also was going to the Chicago Auto Show like 2 days after I finished it. So we just really wanted the car to look good, and we really didn't want to screw it up going for a drive. So a 3rd layer of fluorine-based, kind of double topper was a good way to go for this car. Not a traditional way that we would normally do that, though. And then we moved into the inside. And the funny thing about the inside is, again, the car is in pretty good shape. I think it has 2,500 miles on it. And the owner has driven it, I think, about 2,000 miles since March, and it is currently July. So, I mean, that's a lot of driving. That's like really, really serious miles for a $3.3 million Bugatti. So, you know, God bless him. He's enjoying this car, man. He really likes driving it. So the inside of the car, as soon as I saw it, I was like, man, I can make that look way better. And the collection management guy was with me, and he kind of saw it, and he was like, oh yeah, look, you know, whatever. I don't know if he kind of maybe dismissed that, or he was just like, yeah, it looks pretty good to me. But I spent about a full day doing just interior cleaning on the car. And again, we're using a Detail Factory brush and then Gtechniq leather mild. And this is a deadly combo for cleaning interiors. It is so, so good. You can use a Gtechniq leather brush, which is more aggressive than using just the Detail Factory brush. Again, when you're working on a $3.3 million car, you're doing everything you can to be careful. And in that case, I'm going least aggressive first. So the Gtechniq brush is more aggressive for heavy lifting. And I didn't think I needed that based on how, you know, good the car was. It was in good condition, but it needed a leather cleaning. So the Detail Factory brush was what I started with, which was least aggressive. And the result was really good. So that was all we ended up needing, and that was how I did the entire interior. For reference, that is an extremely affordable approach if you want to try a leather cleaning on your car at home. And yeah, we did the seats, the whole inside of this car is made out of aluminum and leather, and like that's it. There's no plastic in here. So I mean, literally almost there's Alcantara too on the inside. So I mean, literally every surface was cleaned with Gtechniq leather mild and that Detail Factory brush basically. And I wish I could put smells into a YouTube video, but the smell of this car after it was cleaned was amazing. It smelled like it was brand new. It felt like it was brand new. It looked brand new again. It was matte. It kind of had a satin finish. We've done videos where you've seen the inside of the car looks very glossy. This wasn't glossy, but it did have a satin finish, and we always want a matte finish on leather. So after that process, it was proper. It was matte. After that, the entire inside gets L1 leather guard, which is from Gtechniq. That's basically just a ceramic coating for the inside. It has BioCoat in it, so it helps keep it 99.99% germ free. And it's also going to maintain that matte finish, has some UV resistance in it, and it has some abrasion resistance in it, so it'll actually help when the hundreds of people at car shows get in and out of it. It's going to help against some dye transfer and stuff like that. Overall, the inside looked really, really good when it was done. I would say the entire car basically looked like it was brand new. It was so fun to re-deliver this car back to the owner, or I actually delivered it to the collection management guy who drives the car routinely. So he said, you know, word for word, this is the best it's ever looked. It's looked way better than, you know, when we picked it up. And I think I blew his mind a little bit with the leather, the way the leather feels, and just like the seat. And people usually tell me after I do a leather cleaning that the seats feel softer. I've heard that more than once. So yeah, so it's just interesting, you know, how the process goes to make a car look really, really good when it's done. All right, let's talk about that 1%. So when you're doing details to the level of what Status Detail is doing, you have to have the conversation of what's 100% and what's, you know, 99%. And in this case, this whole car, literally front to back bumpers, has paint protection film on it. So front to back, all of it has paint protection film on it. And when you have a Bugatti Chiron coming from the factory, they wet sand that car from the factory. So literally the entire car is wet sanded to remove orange peel. Now, no matter what kind of film you use, when you put paint protection film onto a car, you add orange peel. So when you have a car that's literally, they've spent, you know, I don't even know how many hours literally making the paint perfect, you have paint protection film going on top for the sake of why people put paint protection film on a car to protect it, and we end up putting orange peel back in there. So I was unable to actually polish real paint to perfect real paint further than Bugatti brought it. And that means that means I wasn't able to put the maximum gloss and the maximum clarity that can go into the paint. So the car was missing in the end, in my opinion, that 1%. Now the problem with that, or the more like the paradoxical question of that is that the wrong move to have paint protection film on it? And that's kind of where I needed your help, I guess. So you have to tell me, is it right or wrong to put paint protection film on a car like this? I have no idea. I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer. I think you do whatever you think is best. If it was my car, I would not put paint protection film on it. I would make my car perfect and I would know that I had the maximum gloss, the maximum depth in the paint, the maximum clarity, meaning no orange peel in it. And if I get a rock chip or two, my imperfection will be the 1% of having a rock chip or two. Now, on the flip side of that, there's the conversation of I want paint protection film. And on that side of it, you maybe stop some rock chips, but we have orange peel in a car that shouldn't have it. So that's your 1%. So it's kind of a conversation of what 1% do you want to have? Do you want to have a 1% of clear broil that's not perfect, or do you want to have a 1% of maybe you get a couple rock chips? Because this car is driven a lot, there's more of a conversation of paint protection film probably is the right answer, because you can always peel it off and put it back on. But the reality of paint protection film is even when there's paint protection film, if you're doing 60, 70 miles an hour or higher, which this car routinely does, it's very possible for a rock to go through the film and still hit the paint. And then when you peel that film off, you have exponentially higher chances of literally pulling paint and clear coat off with that, which means you're going to ruin the bumper and have to repaint it. And if you put paint protection film back over a car that has rock chips underneath it now, you essentially have to repaint that bumper because it's going to look terrible putting film over a rock chip. So it's kind of a one and done thing where if you put film on and you end up getting a chip, it's basically never going to have film again at that point, or you're going to leave film on that's not perfect. So it's a complicated answer. It's a complicated question. It's a complicated answer of I have no idea what's right or wrong. Comment below, tell me what you would do. Would you do paint protection film and know it wasn't perfect, or would you do no paint protection film and risk getting chips, which inevitably would make it not perfect? No right or wrong answer here. It's just what would you do? I don't know, it's a conundrum. What would you do on your $3.3 million car? So I was very, very fortunate to go for a drive in the car after it was completed. And that was just an amazing experience. I mean, I have never been in a car that's been so fast, and I've driven some very fast cars. Recently, I was in a Taycan that was unbelievably quick. You know, those electric cars are very, very fast. They have very immediate torque when they take off. Most cars you get from 50 to 100 and then 100 to like 130, noticeably slower. I swear this car feels like it is going faster from 100 to 130 than it did 50 to 80. Like, it keeps going and it just doesn't stop. So it's the opposite of what an electric car is. An electric car has everything in the beginning and then it tapers off and you don't feel it anymore. Whereas if you can imagine the inverse of like the torque that you feel from an electric car going very quick from 0 to 100, the Bugatti does that basically from like 100 to 250. Like, it just keeps building and putting you into your seat harder as it keeps building boost and going, and it just breaks your brain. It doesn't make sense, and no car has ever been able to do something like that to me. We did go. I did follow them back to the where the car resides, and we did clean it up, so it was clean again, because obviously I wasn't going to leave them with a dirty Bugatti after we kind of did a joyride. Be sure to subscribe and follow Hamilton Collection on all forms of social media. They do some cool giveaways too, so you can follow on their Instagram, and every 1,000 followers they get on Instagram, they will give away a free ride in one of their cars. The Bugatti is included in that. So all you have to do is literally just subscribe to their Instagram page. They are pretty viral on TikTok, so they're posting a lot on TikTok, and there's some cool stuff on there. And then they do have a YouTube channel coming, but it's not officially out yet. I can link it in the description below, but they don't have any videos yet. There will be videos soon. And then we're going to do a giveaway too. So I'm going to give away a free ceramic coating package from my car care store. I'm going to ship it directly to your house. All you need to do is like this video. Once this video gets 1,500 likes, that'll make it active. And then I'm going to give away a free ceramic coating package to anyone who's commented. So you're going to want to comment and I would suggest, you can comment anything you want, anything you find cool about the car. And I would definitely send this video to your friends and make sure they like the video, because if we don't get 1,500 likes, the giveaway will never happen. So once we get 1,500 likes, I'm gonna choose a comment randomly, and your submission into the giveaway is just commenting. Technically, you don't even have to like the video. As long as you've commented and there were 1,500 likes, you're good to go. And then I'll just reach out to you. I'll give you a free consultation. I'll help you understand how to install the ceramic, and we'll mail it to you, and you can kind of play around with like 150 bucks of free ceramic on your car. Alrighty guys, that's going to wrap up this video. I have more Bugatti content coming soon, so there's going to be a lot of videos on this car and more crazy hypercar stuff. I think we're going to have a little bit of a monopoly on automotive detailing content on hypercars, because we have a lot of really crazy cars coming, and our relationship with the Hamilton collection sounds like what they've told me so far. A lot of crazy cars coming, so those cars will come here for details, and very, very exciting stuff. Very exciting to turn out some really, really cool content. So this is just the beginning, guys. This is just the beginning of the relationship with this car, and the beginning of a relationship with many different supercars and hypercars. So if you're looking for the best automotive detailing content with the coolest cars in the world on a YouTube channel, you definitely found it. Look forward to seeing you guys in the next video, and we'll see you soon.